Welcome to The Gap, where it's our mission to bridge the gap between training and on-field performance.
I'm Brett Hart, owner of Hitman Performance.
And I'm Dan Labadia, the owner of Jack Javelin.
Hope you guys enjoy the show.
All right, so we're 100 episodes in. Oh, Brett, did you think we would make it this far?
I thought we were going to cap at episode 21. No, whatever that post was. It's like only a certain amount of podcasts get there. No, dude, I think 100 is obviously a cool milestone. I think it's definitely going in the right direction of what we're doing and what we started with. Like one name change, 3 camera changes, 3 mic changes in the 100 episodes.
Yeah, 3 mic changes.
The Rhodes, the wireless ones, then the Yetis, those sucked, and then these ones. What else changed? We got headphones now.
Yeah.
We got the audio.
Yeah, that was a big one when we upgraded our audio instead of just recording straight into the camera. Or
still in the same room. Maybe episode 100 to 200 is when we get an official studio.
That'd be crazy.
That would be great. The amount of change happened from 0 to 100 was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's intentional.
Normal, though.
I think there's a lot of small changes that'll happen at the beginning that will be like those micro changes, and then I think whatever happens next might be like one huge change where, like, who knows, maybe a year from now we'll have a studio or a facility or whatever. You know, you never know. Because I guess if we continue to do one a week, it'll be 2 years from now. Mm-hmm. So 2 years, a lot can happen. Like, you look at 2 years ago, we were both still working together when we started this.
We were.
And then we took a year and a half where we weren't working together. And, I went to doing my own thing. I was still working at the school part-time. You were full-time at the gym. And then now we're both fully self-employed. So, it's on the right track to continue to push forward the mission. Like, I've always had the mission of making javelin mainstream and trying to bring that in light of other sports and other throwing events, or, with baseball or even strength and conditioning. And so, now you've blown up the last year on Instagram, and, you're trying to get the long form stuff with the YouTube and the podcast up on the next level. We added the YouTube channel this year. I think the biggest thing for me is, like, as I was driving over here reflecting, is it shows, like, I think that on average, say most of the episodes are, we used to do like hour-long episodes. Now we're trying to focus more on the quality of things. Like, so we go with like 20 to 30 minutes. But either way, each episode was about probably 2 hours worth of work. I would say 3 hours sometimes too, depending on how smooth the editing process was. Because, you figure from start to finish, recording is about, say on average 45 minutes, and then editing the pod, and then uploading it, and then writing the descriptions and doing the thumbnail and all that stuff. It's like, you look at what's that rule, right? It takes like 1,000 hours to be good at something, and then like 10,000 hours to be great. And so, I figure after 100 episodes, we've gotten good because we've put in about 100 hours.
Dude, I'll say the amount of time it takes us from getting a guest on a Zoom call to getting that call started to the podcast start, we've significantly decreased that time. We slashed that time in half.
Yeah.
Because when we first started, we were trying to get too fancy too quick, I think, and that was us trying to like focus more on the aesthetics and to make it look nice, like trying to figure out how to get them on the TV, and then having the mic literally pointed at the TV.
Yeah.
And then after an hour, all the technology frazzes out, and we couldn't finish it, and then the wrong mics, and then not having the right audio, and this process and how we set up and how we start is just a lot smoother. And I think that's what gets people like to quit before 21 episodes on a podcast, I think, is because if they were to do it themselves, like if I were to do this myself, or if you were to do this yourself, like, I don't know if we would have gotten to 100 episodes just based off the sheer amount of effort. Like, you put a ton of effort in with the always wanting to make it look better and to sound better and getting the editing done. And then I literally wanted to just destroy my room and redo it. And then going with you and trying to figure out how to get this nut out of here for 5 hours on a Saturday. Yeah. Like, so much other stuff that we could have been doing. And none of this was paid for. So it's really just us investing into it and trying to grow something together, which is insane and really cool. But then you go through it, and there's episodes that you don't really feel like filming. You don't really feel like talking about anything, and you just don't want to do it. If you're by yourself, you're much more likely just to bag it and skip it, like 100%. So I understand why it's easy to fall off on. And I was talking to somebody, like they're asking, how do you post on Instagram so much? Or how do you grow your Instagram? It's like, you got to post on the days you don't want to post. And then NBA players said it the same way. It's like, dude, we play basketball when we don't want to. And we still put the work in. It's like, it's the same thing with pretty much anything. It's just, you're not always going to want to do something. You're not always going to want to sit down, have a podcast. That's why I like the guests now, because now it's just, we're not holding each other accountable. We're also holding like the other person accountable and having someone else to talk to and bringing a different light, different perspective. And I think from episode 100 to 200 is like, that's where I want to focus on, is getting a lot more strength coaches that have similar but different mindsets in the field and hear what they have to say and pick their brain a little bit, because I think that is the most unique opportunity to get someone with 30 plus years potentially of coaching experience in an hour-long talk.
Yeah, and I agree with that too, because I know we had a lot of, I would say the show is definitely a lot more javelin focused earlier on, and I think that as my skill set has evolved to, beyond javelin, where 24-year-old Dan was like, can only talk about so much.
Through the point, donkey kick,
but it's like
corkscrew. That's where, to be honest, in the first 50 episodes, I think I was still working a full-time job. So I was just trying
the first year?
Yeah. So a lot, the first 70 episodes maybe, or 60 episodes. Yeah. So honestly, you were taking the lead on all the guests and doing all of it. And I was kind of just on the passenger seat being like, all right, fuck it, what are we talking about? It's like, oh, another javelin guest? All right, I guess I'm going to find out.
Yeah. Well, in light of recent events too, I've been listening to a lot more politics about, I've been listening to I meant podcasts, not politics.
I didn't know where that was going to go. I didn't know what I was like, politics?
Well, I was going to touch up on it briefly, but a big thing that in the podcast I've been listening to a lot more, like business and politics podcasts and stuff, just because it brings a little bit more seriousness to podcasting, because I'm used to listening to a lot of the Coach 'em Up podcast. They talk about training, they joke around a lot. You might listen to whatever, right? But I was listening to Ben Shapiro, and he was talking about how Charlie Kirk grew the Turning Point USA from 18 to 31. And it was just how basically he was saying that Turning Point USA grew a ton because Charlie Kirk grew as an individual. And I just thought that was really inspiring for me to be able to look back and be because he was talking about how he became a better speaker, a better debater, just more mature, more eloquent, just what?
You said debater, and I just thought of the South Park episode.
Oh yeah.
With Cartman.
Yeah. But you see how, when you are a founder of something, right? You're the founder of Hitman Performance. I was the founder of Jack Javelin, or I am the founder of Jack Javelin. And we founded The Gap together. And it's when you are trying to grow something, you have to be able to level up over whether it's a short period of time or a long period of time. But if the founder stays the same and doesn't improve, then whatever vision and dream you're trying to accomplish is not gonna take off. And so that was just a really encouraging thing for me to look at, because I know too, you always look at people that are 10, 12 years in the game and think that they've been doing it for 6 months. And I have to remind you that they haven't.
Everyone is 27.
Yeah, everyone is 25.
Everyone's 2 years ahead of me. I need to get there now.
Yeah. So I just thought that was a good, reminder, is that, if you want to grow something, then you have to adapt. And I think that goes to show with our show, to be doing it ourselves with, going from where we started to where we are now, it might not reflect as much with the views and the subscribers and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you have to know that we're doing this because we enjoy it. And there is a certain level of accountability that we hold each other to when you are self-employed in a lot of what you do. If you're working 60 hours a week and you are doing 10 hours a week in person or 20 hours a week in person, you need to have people that you're on the same mission with. And I think that that's part of why I love doing in-person coaching through the fall. And that's part of why I love volunteering at the school to do javelin coaching in the wintertime when I don't do as many private lessons or any private lessons at all. That's why I like doing the podcast with you, because you're a strength coach and this gets to add to my career while just sitting down and talking shop. And it also gives me a reason to improve my public speaking and improve my ability to produce a podcast and improve my ability to edit. And it's just that self-growth mindset that I get addicted to, or I guess addicted is not the right word, but like, when you start improving one thing at a time.
Addicted's right. I think, yeah. I mean.
Well, I guess addicted
like
gets
crack, but
addicted gets a negative connotation to it. So
obsessive.
It's addictive in a good way. But like, I've talked about, just to relate it back to strength and conditioning, but like when I had the Tommy John surgery and I miraculously lost like 20 pounds, it was because I wasn't training as much and stuff. But it was like, all right, well, now I actually am getting kind of lean. And so I want to keep that up. Like, so you start looking into the diet. All right. And then you get abs. And then you're like, all right, well, now how can I improve my lower body mobility while my arm's busted up? Oh, my lower body mobility is like a lot better. How can I, now improve my upper body mobility once, I'm at the 2-month mark of post-op? And then you just go compounding. Then 5 years later, you're like, all right, you're super mobile, super fast, athletic, jacked. You gained 20 pounds of muscle at that point, but you stayed lean. And so when you look at it from a strength side, when you make those little changes with your nutrition, your mobility, your running, your jumping, your lifting, your muscle mass, your body composition, then the skill of the sport, it's that compounding effect that is addictive. And I think that that's where, you want to see that progress and continue to just, put the foot on the gas when you're training and making progress like that. And then same thing in your career.
I'm the same way. I mean, from when I started to now, and my ideologies of strength conditioning have clearly changed, went back, changed again, find something new. And I know it's hard to stay, as like a younger strength coach, to stay on one training philosophy for your whole life. But I think that's flawed when people say like you can only talk about a training philosophy you've done it for like 5 to 10 years. I was like, that how? Like, why? Like, there's so many things out there, and if you're gonna experiment them on yourself, I agree that if you're only doing it based off what you read and not actually going to apply it to yourself or to your athletes or seeing results. But I remember the first time I walked into Upward at the gym, I said strength was all that mattered. Like, if you guys got stronger, everything will get better. And for a lot of those kids, yeah, it was probably true. I mean, they were just all really weak. But that's not always the case for a lot of athletes. And then I get into more of the hard and soft training, right, the masculine and feminine, the extreme isometrics, the rebound reps, the oscillatory reps, RPR, square one system. Like listening to Sam Davis talk about not having to warm up before we can go sprint and having that ability to just be able to do it. It blew my mind. And it's still like, and I talked to Jared Slater today from IHT Performance, and he was giving me a protocol because I'm telling him I'm still a little banged up. I think I might have a sports hernia on my right side. I'm not going to get it checked out because I don't want to actually know. But I felt it today, and I was like, that doesn't feel like a normal issue. I was like, well,
put some ice on it.
You put some rice, baby. You got to elevate that. Just lift it up. But it's crazy. It's a rabbit hole, and you can keep going down rabbit holes. And for me, that's what excites me, and that's my passion of what I want to do. And that's why I want other strength coaches to come on and talk about it, because it was a reality check for me hearing like Joe Padula come on and talk, and then Caden, and then Sam, like those guests, like back to back to back like that, is that they're just so in it still. And that's what I loved. And that's what I was missing for a good couple of months of like not being challenged and not being like looking at things in a different light. Like Joe brought up something on the force velocity curve that I never even thought of talking about sprinting. And then Caden has his...
Man, I didn't even know what that was.
You knew that word, though. You knew that, whatever that word he was talking about. But it's like, and he's 25. So there you go. Like how I always compare myself to people is like, there's someone my age that is extremely smart and he's doing very well in the industry and in the field. And hearing him talk on Coach Him Up, he knows his stuff. And that's what excited me. Of being like, there's more to this stuff. And then obviously all those guys that do the Cal Dietz-esque training style of the rapid reps, rebounds, extreme slows, all that stuff. That fires me up to learn it and to go do it. And I was getting honestly bored of squat, bench, deadlift all the time. Just hammer the basics, do the basics. That's all you need. Dude, I'm not training really for anything, just to train. And if my brain's not engaged to like a squat, a bench, or a deadlift, I'm just doing it to do it and check off boxes. We talk about it all the time. Then I know I can, like, I shouldn't need so much pre-workout and heavy death metal music and just to get fired up to do a workout. Like, I don't think that's what, it's crazy that I'm changing the subject, like changing my mind on it mid-thought right now. Like, that's not what training really should be. It's because if you're trying to change different movement patterns and to perform better in your sport, like, you don't need to have all that external stimulus to help you do it. And I mean, playing basketball with those kids, getting cooked by them, that like had me thinking about it. And every time I work out, I think about it, it's like, you don't need a lot of the barbell stuff to see a lot of these athletes do what they do. Like we talk, like high genetic people can do whatever they want. But even like the mid-tier, low-tier, like genetic gene pool athletes, a lot of them just need to know how to hold positions and get strong in those positions and then be able to replicate it on the field. That's not sport-specific training. But yeah, the barbell helps, enable the squat, bench, and deadlift help. But I definitely had way too strong of a bias on it early in my career, and then even until like a couple months ago where I thought like, this is the answer. And then it could be for a short amount of time, and then you get banged up and you're not prioritizing mobility or moving because all you want to do is lift.
I think going back to what you were saying about you can't speak on something about your coaching philosophy unless it's been 5 years or more. Well, you can't really buy into that because say you're like us who started coaching when we were 22, 23, and if you've been doing it for a year, 6 months is 50% of your career at that point. So how are you going to say that?
You could have changed your mind 20 times in that 6 months too.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it too. And I think that a lot of coaches that are in their early to mid 20s especially are really just figuring stuff out a lot of the times. You know, some people are a little bit more guided better than others. Some people are naturally smarter than others in terms of what they got out of their time in school. Some people are a little bit better at self-reflecting. I think that was a big thing for me. I don't think I definitely wasn't the smartest guy, but I was very big on self-reflecting and self-improvement, and I had a great mentor. And so I've been able to, take what I know and apply it into layman's terms for the next generation to come up. And I've had a lot of success with that. And so you got to find your way of doing stuff. And obviously I think that for me from, the time I started coaching Nevin and Jordan at 21 to 25, I changed my mind about a ton of stuff during those first like 4 years. And then now the last year, I've pretty much stayed consistent in my own thoughts and worked with my own athletes and been able to learn my own lessons through that gift of self-reflection that I have instead of, I feel like I did all of that, like flying to Florida and flying across the country and going to the camps and networking and hopping on Zoom calls. Like I did all that from, 22 to 25. Like that was all I did. It was getting in rooms with other people that were smarter than me and whatnot. And then the last year, I've just been dialed in on my own thought process and my own philosophy and my own, business, because that's what it is too, is me being able to put my thoughts into my programs and my free course and in my content. It takes time and it takes confidence too. Like I can't just, I think it was harder for me to make content earlier on because whether you want to call it imposter syndrome or whatever, but a lot of times when I was speaking, I was always thinking like, oh, what is this person going to think in the javelin community? Or what is this person going to think in the baseball community about this post on arm care or whatever? And you can't be like that. You know, you have to be confident in what you're doing, and you have to be okay with making mistakes. And, you know, we've made a ton of mistakes through this podcast and through our coaching careers, but that constant state of self-reflection and self-improvement is what allows you to keep going forward.
I think me being in the trenches for a while, like doing the long hours and coaching and speaking about what I lived was very big fish, small pond. If I could probably make that metaphor, is that I felt like there was a lot of things I wanted to know, but being in the facility working so much, and then you get out of it, you are exposed to like this whole new world. So yeah, you could be great in your little niche coaching group, like not even coaching group, just your gym that you work at. But then you go on social media and then you see hundreds, thousands of people that are smashing it and crushing it and that portray themselves as extremely smart. Who knows? Again, it's social media could put on a little bit of a facade. That's why I like having like the long form stuff, because it's hard to fake being smart for an hour on an episode, and we've done 100 of them, so
1,000 hours.
1,000 hours. I mean, if you think we're idiots, I mean, we got a lot of proof for it, but but just, I think getting stuck in that, I just made that connection to what you were talking, is just, I didn't have that time to go out and meet people and talk to people. I think that's why I'm getting so excited about the guests that we have on, and opening up more doors and more connections and networking with other coaches in the industry, because I wanted freaking nomad trip and go everywhere and go to gyms and work out with people or learn from them or do workshops and stuff like that. And like before, I had no way I would have been able to do that.
Yeah, you had no time to do that.
Yeah.
But I think what's cool about that is that you're able to do it. And I don't want to say, not that my trips weren't civil or anything like that, but a lot of times going into those trips, it was, I am known to come from this certain thought process. And when I was going out to those trips, it was essentially, I'm going out to a new environment where they are going to challenge the way that I've been talking about things. Mm-hmm. And so that was a little intimidating at first. Like, I think that, you know, me being a little bit, you know, charismatic and being just generally not a douchebag, I was able to, you know, learn a lot from them and make good relationships that I still have to this day. And that was good. But that was like a little, you know, at first it was almost like I was going in like, you know, not ready to prove myself, but I had to know that I was taking the backseat to learn and to be humble in that way. But that was always just the thought process was, you know, don't act like you are going to know everything, mm-hmm. right? They're going to try to tell you that their way is the best way because that's what they believe and that's what they've been doing for years. And I was very, very new to it. And so, you know, you go into the conversation with the mindset that, you know, if there's something to be learned here, I'll learn it. If I don't necessarily agree with anything, that's fine. You don't have to like argue about it. You just go back home and apply what's useful and disregard what's not useful. And, you know, that was super helpful for me because I was able to take little bits and pieces from everybody and then, you know, kind of put them into my own philosophy. And, but yeah, no, it's awesome that you're able to get, you know, do it in a civil way. Because I mean, as far as I know, there's no like enemies here. I
mean, you never know. Strength and conditioning, there's definitely different schools of thought.
Yeah.
And I like the Tony Holler approach is really cool because he has his own system, but he'll have people like, he'll talk to like David Weck on stuff because he's very A-skip, A-switch, linear progression, sprinting, Altus stuff, Les Spellman stuff, like normal sprint, biomechanics sprint training. And he has his X Factor drills, which are great with like the depth shot, like the depth drops and the pogos and everything. But then he has Power Plus on doing like the crazy tantrums, the Marinovich system, David Weck doing the Weck system. And David Weck is a very rotational mover and talking about the locomotive patterns. I don't think he's ever had functional patterns on because he's a different type of being. But Caden on his episode said it the best. It was like everything kind of works. We just have to know why and understand the why behind it and be able to back it up. And that's what we were talking about on that episode, which I thought was really cool because we were joking about like the the trap bar jump community and the Olympic lift community and how they just want to butt heads. But end of the day, both groups just want more powerful and explosive athletes. In my mind, who cares how they get there? And that's just how I think about it. Is like there's so many, clearly all these different schools of thought have thousands of testimonials saying they worked. So that's where I was thinking about making a post about like people saying like results matter. Like you can get results doing anything, like anything. You get someone untrained enough, and you just do a little stretching. It's like, oh, look at that, you could touch his toes, and you couldn't do it before in 10 minutes. Like, whoa, results happen if you believe in something hard enough. Like, this is why I do love David Weck, not for what he teaches, but just his personality behind it. He truly loves what he's doing, and you could see it. Like, you can hear it in his voice when he talks about it. He's a little nuts.
Conviction.
He's freaking nuts. But that conviction or that belief in that training system feeds off on the athlete or who you're working with. Because if I go into it not really thinking it's going to work, and I'm like hesitant and skeptical, then the athlete's going to also feed off that and probably not try as hard because they don't think it's going to work. People love knowing if stuff's going to work for them. At the end of the day, that's all it is. That's why they like results. That's why they like testimonials. But like, everything will work to a certain point until it doesn't, and that's when you figure it out. But that's where I come from. My train of thought is that if all of these people can get results, like, I just want to understand why and like what they do that works and why is that better than this. And I'll try it myself if I think if it doesn't feel right for me, if it in my mind doesn't make sense. Like, I'll do my best to understand it, but then take what's useful, disregard the rest. And then I think that's what most strength coaches should do. And I think that's the guests that we have on like to think like that too, like the outside the box thinkers that are very smart, that know the book, know the box. But they also know how to think outside of it. And I think that's where I want to take this podcast and I want to take my career and focus more stuff on that.
So let me ask you a question. If you were to take an athlete in high school who was good to slightly above average, right? At what point, say they're 18 and they were to stop training, at what age do you think they would actually stop getting better at the sport? Because what I see is, for example, when I was in high school, maybe with my early in high school, right? Like, it was hard for me as a catcher to throw from home to second base. When I, was in BP, I could never hit a home run. Dunking a basketball was tough for me, right? And these are sports that I didn't even play past like 15, right? So dunking a basketball was tough. Throwing to second base was tough. Hitting a home run was tough. I would say sprinting below 5-second 40 was tough. What else? Just overall lifting, right, was not always the highest point. Like, for me, like, I think my max bench going into my senior year of football was like 240, and my clean was probably like around the same, like 235, something like that. I was done with those sports, but I continued to train, and then I went back to those sports in college and was taking BP, was easily able to hit home runs, was easily able to throw from home plate to second base, was easily able to dunk after training, right? At what point do you think an athlete who didn't train would just stop getting better? Because like, there's a lot of kids that I think were naturally like pretty good at sports, and I would say even better athletically than I was in high school, but after 18, like, they weren't training hard. So do you think that they would continue to get better into their mid to late 20s, or do you think someone like me who continued to train ends up being better than them anyway?
It depends on the sport and it depends on the athlete. I think every level you do, the game speeds up, no matter the sport, or it gets more competitive. So high school, like, you can get away without training. Like, high school basketball, Patrick Beverley dropped 50 points every game. He averaged 5 points his NBA career. He was defensive lockdown. Like, his roles changed in the NBA. But he averaged 50 in high school a game. He dropped 72 one time. Best player by far. You go to college, game speeds up, your roles might change. He's not really a weight room hero, it looks like, just based off of it. And then, and like as you see, like roles, speed, competition, everything changes. So high school, if you're an average to above average athlete, you're not really working out, but you're getting offers and you're really good at the sport, you'll be fine in college. You'll get to college. And then depends on how good you are at that sport, like above average, and you can play it and get starter minutes or be able to produce. Like nothing's really stopping you to keep playing. The thing with training, like if you're already above average at the sport and you're good at the skill and you're able to compete and you have that competitive mindset, training helps with a little bit of the longevity piece. So it helps with like those nagging injuries, or gives you the capacity to do more work within a game. It gives you that workhorse mentality. And that's what BJF Performance has about like the grit factor, like being able to grit is high work capacity and just a high motor. Like that's essentially, like it's just, you're conditioned and you care. Dennis Rodman was probably a great example of that. And he has like another guy on the Pacers that's like that. It's like nothing crazy genetically, but training is very glorified in the United States. Like there's plenty of professional athletes overseas that don't work out nearly as much as our guys do. They don't. We love lifting. I think the way I'm looking at it now is I think we might like it too much. Because I think we like lifting a little bit too much. I mean, like in the broad spectrum, a lot of kids just need it. A lot of kids just need movement. They're not growing up with movement or anything, so they just need to move. In sport, if they're playing multiple sports, that also depends, because then you're going to train different skill factors as well. So like Kobe Bryant was a great soccer player. Derek Jeter was a great basketball player. Aaron Judge was a 3-sport athlete. So with football, basketball, and baseball, obviously he's 6'8", so he's going to be great at basketball. They just stand under the rim and dunk. So it all depends on the sport and how you're made up and how much you care. But there's tons of examples of people that didn't really use the weight room at all. So Allen Iverson always get mentioned because he said lifting weights was too heavy. He hated it. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, they lifted because they love to work hard. You see LeBron James training, it's not crazy. He's just a one of one athlete. So what strength and conditioning does is it helps the average and above average athlete to have a fighting chance to compete with those guys. Because the higher level up you go, yeah, hard work plays a factor and training plays a factor, but it's just some people are just genetically better than you.
Well, that was like Hermosi said that one of his favorite Kobe quotes was like, Kobe said that he got to the NBA and he thought everyone was going to be working their butt off, but a lot of the people were either just really genetically gifted or they had the attitude that they had made it already. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when you look into like the training side of it, the extra shots, the extra free throws, the extra rehab, the diet, people weren't locked in that capacity.
That is, so I would argue, because like he didn't have like that genetic ability. His genetic advantage was the ability to work hard and put extra shots up and do extra work. Because if everyone can do it, everyone would do it. People choose not to do it. And Huberman was with David Goggins on the podcast talking about like the part of your brain that like actually it gets stronger the more you do stuff you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. I forget the name of it. I forget the part of it that's in your brain, like the actual name for it. So that mental toughness,
it's like a callus.
Yeah, like that mental toughness, that callus, that resilience, like the Mamba mentality. Like Jordan got cut in high school. That lit the fire under him to work harder, train harder. And so a very high emotional moment for him led him to wanting to work harder. And that went into this NBA, his very successful college and NBA career. Kobe was the same way. And that was his genetic advantage, was his ability to work hard. Melo says it on the Team USA one where Kobe's in the gym in the Olympic team at 5 a.m. He's the only one there. And then like Darren Williams and someone joined, and LeBron and Dwayne Wade joined. And Melo's like, I was never at those 5 a.m. workouts. And he was on the same Team USA Olympic team. And Carmelo Anthony was great. He was a great player. He didn't win a ring. He fizzled out. He wasn't like like he's still an NBA great. He's gonna be he's still a Hall of Famer. But like when you think of like the people love to glorify the hard work. They love to glorify like the grit and the tenacity and all that, but that itself is a genetic component.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the same thing about like leadership and stuff. And I think that was my biggest attribute to when me, Nevin, and Jordan were training together from a young age. And like I was alluding to earlier, like how I wasn't the best athlete at the time. I wasn't even the strongest in the group at the time. I mean, I was in some lifts, but Jordan had me beat in the power clean and the bench, even from the time he was a freshman. He always threw further than me. So it was like, how did I not really know truly what I was doing, and also was not even the strongest? It was because I knew more than they did at the time, and I was a good leader. And I mean, I think that's kind of, now that I'm, like I said, self-employed and kind of doing this sort of alone, right? Like, you're the closest thing I have to a business partner right now, and we do this like once or twice a week. So that's where, for me, like, when I think about the future of like the Gap or Jacked Javelin, I look at like trying to have like a team, or that club team to lead. And I think that's
leadership team.
I think you took a serious moment and just killed it. No, but I mean,
you just reminded me of it. 5 employees, 4 people on the leadership team.
Dude, everyone's got that dog in them. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's just you finish your thought. Yeah.
No, but anyway, what I was gonna say was like, the Jacked Javelin club team that I started this year, and then even looking beyond that of like, if we have like a post-collegiate club team where people are like a garage strength is something that I see a ton of, which is cool, because Dane Miller just coached a guy to go get third at the World Championships in the discus, and he's part of the garage strength club team. And it's like, that's where I look at like, yeah, the training camp and like the facility would be nice one day and stuff like that, but like having that team to lead is like something that I have that deep longing for.
Dude, Navy SEALs go to different colleges. Not what I'm getting at with the Tufts thing where they destroy them, but a Navy SEAL will go and just scout the team and see who the captains are, and then watch them practice, watch their actions, their movements. He doesn't coach them on anything. He just watches and spectates a practice. And then more often than not, usually who's the captain on like just say a football team, who's the captain?
Tom Brady.
Like the best player. Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like just the best player.
Yeah, usually the best player.
Like a high school captain doesn't mean they're a good leader. They're just the best at the sport.
Ray Lewis.
But so what happens is you take someone that isn't the greatest at the sport, but they're great. They have great leadership qualities. That they show up early. They care about other people. They want to bring people up. They want to help. They're very selfless. And then the best players on the team, they're a little bit more ego-filled. They're a little bit more selfish, where they care more about their self-interest of their scholarship, their endorsements now, their NIL money, like them getting seen, them getting the playing time, the goals, the assists, whatever. So I think, again, people put too much of that bias towards like leadership doesn't mean that they're the best player. And we've said it before on like who makes like the best strength coaches, or like the people that weren't the best at the sport because it didn't come naturally to them. They had to work a little bit harder. They had to try a little bit harder, and they get more understanding of it as a whole. And that's where they become the coach.
Well, that's a big thing that Hermosi said too, was that he said like, a lot of times like the alpha of the group will give up status in exchange for more status down the road. Like you almost like belittle yourself or humble yourself or contribute more to the mission, more to each individual, and take that like humble way. And then eventually you end up being like the figure, right? And I think that's kind of a cool way of looking at it, that like, I mean, not that like, it's not about, being the figure or whatever, but I think it's like, it starts with, giving up so much of yourself for the mission and for the people that you're trying to lead, that eventually it's just like that word of mouth grows, and you just end up being the guy.
Well, it takes a certain type of individual to be able to do that. And I think that's where like the Navy SEALs come in and talk about it and see like who the actual leader is and why so many great basketball players in high school fizzle out in college and NBA is because everyone wants to be the man. Like everyone wants to be the best. They want to be the ones getting the Gatorade Players of the Year and being on the magazines and being the best. That's just a clear want for most athletes. Then you find out you're not that. And that's a tough pill to swallow of like, all right, I'm not the best player. How can I be the best teammate? Like, how can I help others? Like, then it becomes more about the group as a whole and about the mission. And I think that's very undervalued in a lot of youth sports. And I think I've talked about that before. I'm sure I have. We did 100 episodes. I forget. But like the problem with youth sports is everyone just wants to win. It's not about development. It's not about teamwork. It's not about working as one cohesive unit for the mission is to win, yeah, but also to get better. Like an AAU basketball team that's elite 8-year-olds getting deals and getting branded shoes and Instagram accounts. Why? You're 8. Who cares? And that was my Instagram post because Jay was talking about that about Adam's training. Jay Schroeder was talking about that with Adam's training about like, dude, who cares how good you are in high school? Who cares how good you are in college? Like, yeah, you need to be good enough to make it to college.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm training you at 18 to be as good as you possibly can at 23 when it's time to go to the NFL. It's like your accolades, what your 40 time is, how much you bench press, it does not matter. Dude, now.
That's like Tim Boyle that's like Tim Boyle and Will Levis from Xavier High School in Middletown. Both of them came from the same high school. And like, yeah, they were good in high school. But everyone was like, oh, you're a high school quarterback in Connecticut. You're going to go to Alabama? No. It's like, yeah, you won a state championship. Cool. But like, you're in Connecticut. So, it's like, all right, where'd they go? One of them went to UConn. The other one ended up going to Penn State, which is actually pretty good. But that was because like he just had really good, Will had really, really good physical attributes. Went to Penn State for 3 years, barely played. And it's like, all right, well, now what do? He ends up transferring to Kentucky. And by that point, he was a grown man and actually did really well at Kentucky and got his draft stock up and, ended up going in the second round. And he was good enough to make it to the next level. Now he hasn't had the best NFL career at this point, but he was good enough to get through the ranks, even though I think his team went like 4-6 their senior year in Connecticut. And it's like, all right, you're a quarterback in Connecticut that went 4-6. Like, how are you going to make it to the next level? But he had enough to get there. And then when it wasn't going well at Penn State, he had enough to transfer out to a school that was looking for a QB and so on and so forth. And Tim Boyle went from UConn to throwing in. This is a crazy Tim Boyle stat. Is I'm pretty sure he's thrown more picks than touchdowns in at every team he's been with.
Hell yeah, baby!
Since high school,
that's a good stat.
and he's been able to continue. He's like 31 now, and he's still in the NFL. And so what happened was he went from UConn, didn't go well. Went to Eastern Kentucky, like low level D1, didn't even really go that well there. Ended up going like the 6th round to the Packers. Backed up Aaron Rodgers for like 3 years, and then hopped around. Has been with like a bunch of different teams.
But he's still like, he was like good enough to be there though.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
He's on the Lions and then the Jets and then now he's on the Titans. I think he was with the Steelers for a little bit too. I don't even know. But like now he's hopping around the league. But he's like, all right, he's an 8-year NFL veteran. It's like he's been in the league for so long now. And it's just, that happens. But it's like he's just always been good enough to stick around and be there and get to the next level. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole point. I was like, talk about long-term athletic development.
Yeah. Like, dude, I'm getting my second elbow surgery. I'll be 27 next year.
I'll be throwing by 28. It's Tokyo,
season,
baby. Whatever is it? Is it in Tokyo?
I don't know. No, 2028 will be LA. LA.
Dude, it's right down the street.
Yeah. Dude, it's local.
Dude, but drive.
What's crazy is that the last Coach 'em Up podcast I was listening to was they were talking about how like there's people that'll just it was the rowers coach from Texas, and she was talking about how people will just try to join rowing like randomly in their like mid-20s and be like, oh, they do this in the Olympics, like I'm gonna start training for that. and just think that it's like some easy thing to do. And like I got that thing you sent me today of that baseball player that's like day one of training for the 2028 Olympics to be a javelin thrower, spells javelin wrong. I'm like, dude,
he's got it.
What do we think this is?
He's got it. He's got it. Uninformed optimism.
Yes.
Dude,
that's a prime example of uninformed optimism.
Dude, the thing I loved about that Jay Schroeder audio, because it's at the end of the Freak of Training video. This will be quick. It's the end of the video where they're not even working out anymore. They're just talking, and Jay drops the insight. They are pretty much. And then Adam was fully bought into it. It's like, dude, who cares how good you are? And I just had the thought right now, like, how many all-staters in high school in Connecticut are like bagging groceries or like making Subway sandwiches, like, or just doing like a 9-to-5 job? Like, nothing wrong with those jobs, but when you're in high school, think about how much you put into value of those accolades, like how much you care about being all-state or all SEC and how much it matters in that moment. And then you fast forward 10 years and you're still talking about when you went all-state or when you went all SEC, and that's like your moment. It's like, dude, that wasn't the point. Like, that wasn't the point back. Like, there's plenty of reason to just be good in high school. You don't have to play in college or play in pros. Like, I'm not saying you have to do that, but don't take it like it's not life or death. Like, if you're good and you like it to enjoy the sport and you play it for that reason, and if you get the accolades, you get the accolades. It's a byproduct of you being good. I made that mistake. I cared so much about it that it actually hurt my performance, and I didn't try as hard. I mean, I did try really hard, and I tried almost too hard. And that was like that inverse law that we talk about. It's like when you try so hard, the exact opposite happens. Like, that was me. I was just frazzled in my own head, everything. So how many of those people that are the high school forevers that always think about what they did back then that like aren't doing anything now? And like, that's what I think about, and like where I see it is like, if your goal is to be the best athlete you can be, you're not going to be it in high school. You shouldn't be. You should not be the best. You should not be at your peak athleticism in high school. Like, you should be getting better. If you win or lose in high school, again, it matters a lot in the moment, but the grand picture thing doesn't matter that much. Same thing in college. Like, if you want to play pro sports, like, there's going to be a lot of years where it's just getting there. And like, that's the goal at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm not going to try to take away from high school accolades and accomplishments. Like, those are a big deal in the moment. But when you zoom out far enough and you live long enough, you realize like it was cool, but there's other things that are much more important now.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane to think about that. For me, like, I didn't even become a decent athlete till I was 20. I was already 3 years out of high school.
Dude, I still don't think I'm a decent athlete. I've been training all this. So I never had a shot.
No, but you see like the rate of improvement and how when you look back and when you're 16 or 17, you just look back at, all right, how you're not even close to scratching the surface by that point. Like, it's just you're so early on in your athletic development. Like, that's what I think is crazy. It's like when you're 16, 17, why don't you look back a decade? Where were you? You were 6 years old. You could barely walk at that point. Like, you didn't even know how to run.
I'm pretty sure you can walk at 6
I'm
years
just saying. I'm just saying, you know how to walk, but like, you could barely run. You can't do anything at 6, right? Now you look at where we are now at 25, 26. You look back a decade, like, all right, we were just scratching the surface a decade ago.
Just started.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, when you're at 16, 17, you know, you're barely even doing anything yet. But that's why you got to have the long-term vision. And I would say you got to take it with a grain of salt what those parents and coaches are telling you in high school, because a lot of times they almost will make it a bigger deal than it should be. You gotta look at what it's worth and be like you said, be good enough to make it to the next level. And then, you know, when you're in college is when the real will recognize the real.
It's just high school and college. You got to think those coaches want to win. So you're not going to get development from them. So you need to go to a program that you're going to get development from. And a lot of the travel programs don't really do that. Yeah. Just unfortunately, because they want to win too. Because the more they win, the more marketing they get, the more business they get. So that's where it has to fall on you to take your development seriously. And if you're not playing, use more of that time to develop and get stronger, get faster, train more.
Absolutely. Well, episode 100.
Episode 100, baby. Here's to 100 more.
All right. See you guys next time.
Peace. Thanks for tuning in.
And if you enjoyed it, please leave a 5-star rating and review and share the show, because the only way that this show grows is if you like it, share it, and tell your friends and family about it.
New episode every Monday.